Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Another day out here in the barn and time for some more Camaro upgrades. Got some Eibach Pro Kit springs. These showed up yesterday. The front and the rears. The rear is a dual spring rate design. The front's a single spring rate, but these should be much better rates and get more body control for the car and not really sacrifice the ride too much, which I don't mind either way. So I've already got the front wheel off on the driver's side. We're supported on a jack stand. I have a jack, I also have a second jack to support the ball joint on the bottom when you take all this apart. We'll kind of go over the gist of everything and what's going to happen. So you need to disconnect your brake line, take this screw out, disconnect that from the strut, disconnect your wheel speed sensor here, take it out of this clip. If you have Magneride shocks, you'll need to unplug that. You want to unclip everything that's attached to the strut because you're going to have to take the strut out. That's a 10 millimeter. You got two 24 millimeters here. These are a spline drive bolt. So you can pop that out without a wrench, but if you did need a wrench, they're 21 millimeter. And up top, you got your three holding the strut in. They're 13 millimeters. So once you have everything disconnected under here, you'll take your jack and put it under the lower ball joint here just to support everything so that all this doesn't flop down. And as you take these bolts out, this is going to get some wiggle room, so you'll be able to move it down. You just want to make sure that all your lines are free and loose, and you're not straining the brake line or straightening your wheel speed sensor or any of your wiring for the Magneride. And other than that, it's a pretty straightforward process. If you don't have any idea what you're doing, this may not be the job for you. You will need a set of spring compressors, which should be available at your local parts store for a loaner tool program. But I have these, had these for a long time. They make some other designs, but you will have to compress the spring to get the top pad off the strut, and it can be dangerous. They do have some preload on them, so if you have a vise, that's a good use for it. You can do it on the ground. I've done it on the ground. Just make sure that the spring and the strut and everything is pointed away from you when you're taking it apart. So if something does happen and it expands, it doesn't hit you. It can injure or kill you, so be very careful. You will need an alignment after you do this, but I'm going to go ahead and start pulling things apart, and we'll get right back with you here in a few. Okay guys, we've got everything disconnected as far as the wiring goes. One thing I did forget to mention, you will have to remove your sway bar end link. Goes through that bracket. It's an 18 millimeter. This is the point where you want to support this side with a jack because you've got pressure on the other wheel pushing on the sway bar. This clip right here, the way this works, it's plugged in, you move the little red tab up, and then right there on the top, you've got to push that black piece in and snatch it up to get it out. It's kind of a pain, but now we're ready to get out these two last big bolts, holding the strut to the knuckle, and then we'll take the three out of the top and have this thing out of here. See y'all in a few. All right, so we've got everything busted loose. So what you want to do with these, once you get these broken loose, you want to thread them back on to you're right at the end of the nut or end of the bolt, and they are splined, so you got to tap them out. So this way you don't damage the end threads on the bolt. So the bottom one I'm not going to do with one hand. You need to watch out for your speed sensor wiring. Make sure you don't hit that. But once you get those broke loose, break the three loose on top. Once you do that last one, you want to be holding one hand on the strut to guide it out. Once I get these bottoms broke loose, I'll pull it off the knuckle so it's hanging loose. Then we'll do the top and we'll get the thing out, get it in the vise, and change the spring. Sorry guys, I lost the audio for this. My microphone died, the little battery died, but we've got our strut clamped in the vise. We've got our spring compressors on there. If you're using this type, you want to lubricate those threads. I use white lithium grease. You can use oil or whatever you want to use. Make sure you've got the little safety pins in place. And I have a battery powered impact, makes this job a lot quicker, but you can easily do it with a 1/2-inch ratchet and socket. You want to tighten these down a little bit at a time and try to keep it even. You don't want to get the spring in an awkward bind. And if you're doing this laid on the table on the ground, make sure the strut, the top and the bottom, is not pointed at you and you've got it sideways. But make sure your little safety pins stay in place. If you're using an impact, they will back off. So up on the top, to get the top pad off, it's an 18 millimeter nut. You want to bust that loose. The top hat comes off, and then you've got the boot and the isolator off the top of the spring, and you're ready to release tension off the spring, and just repeat the process to put the new one on. Okay, here's a good side-by-side of the springs. The Eibach actually looks a little taller, but I think that's just due to the shape of the coil. It is a little bit taller, but it should compress and be a little bit lower, especially lower about 3/4 of an inch. So there's a little rubber isolator right here that locates the tail of the coil. The Eibach springs are meant to go on with their logo facing right side up, and top pat back on, and we'll get them back in the car. All right guys, there it is. It's back on there. Just make sure that you hook up your sway bar end link again. All your wiring is plugged back in, and all the clips are back in the right place just like they were. Tighten up your brake line holder fitting there. So this is where your alignment's going to get messed up. When you get to tightening these down, you can move the knuckle in and out on the strut. That gives you more or less camber. So what I'm going to do to simplify the alignment process later is I'm just going to shove it all the way in, all the way negative camber, tighten the 2 strut bolts down. We got the top back on. Make sure you put your dust cap back in, and that's it on the front. Pretty simple process. The only kind of dangerous part is messing with the spring. Just take your time with it, be careful, it's no big deal. Put everything back like it was, put it back together. Put on your Doug Shelby Engineering titanium lug nuts for style and weight reduction. And we'll see y'all on the rears. All right, we've got the fronts all done. We're here on the rear. The rear is really pretty simple. You set it on a jack stand under the center cradle there. We've got a jack here right under the spring pocket. We're going to use that to support everything and lay everything down nice and easy as we take bolts out. So let me get under here a little bit. So first bolt is going to be the shock bolt. You take that out. You're going to take out this other arm, the lower arm bolt here. Make sure you've got a mark that you can see, where you can get your alignment somewhat close to how it was before. There's also your sensor for the mag ride for the shock is back here. Let's see if I can get you in here to it. Maybe you can see it. This little rod right here runs down to the arm. And we can't get to it. Let's see how we're gonna get to it. Right there. You pop that off with a pry bar. It's got a little ball socket, kind of like what holds your hood up. There's no little safety clip on it though. So you just pop that off with a pry bar, and once you get all your bolts out, you just ease your suspension down with the jack. You may have to jack it up a little bit to get the bolts to come out all the way and just get everything under a little tension. Release it down. There's an upper and lower isolator. I'll show you once I get it pulled apart. We'll be back in just a second. All right. Got our shock bolt out. That's the eccentric bolt out for the alignment. And we're going to let this down, this jack down nice and slow. Spring is under tension. Just want to be safe about it. You watch that lower arm come on down. You may have to pry bar on it a little bit to get it to come down, but that's okay. That out. Jack that out of the way. That can be finicky. Come on down. There we go. It's loose. Here's that lower isolator right here. Pops off. That's the locating tab that goes down in the hole that I can't show you. But it fits in there like that. It's got an upper isolator that fits the tail of the spring right there. It all goes back together the same way. Get your spring in the isolators, get it in place, get your jack back under it, get it jacked back up. If you got an aftermarket exhaust, hits a little bit right there, no big deal. All right, y'all, there you got it. It's It has been lowered. Got new Eibach springs on all four corners. We put that fender gap down, so we're looking good. I haven't driven the car yet to settle it out. I'm gonna go drive around and get on somebody's schedule for an alignment next week. But overall, not too bad of a job. You'll be doing a lot better if you've got some impacts. You can do it without an impact, but getting some of those, the front strut bolts off and the rear eccentric bolt for the lower control arm, they're on pretty tight. So you can do it without it, but save yourself some effort using impact. Just be careful when you're messing with the springs. The rear eccentric bolt was a 21 millimeter. The rear shock bolt was an 18 millimeter, and that little ride height sensor just pops on and off. That's really the only thing to the rear, and having a jack to lower it down slowly. Make sure everything goes back in the same way. You may have to fiddle with it up and down to get your shock bolt and the eccentric bolt back through. Just kind of lower it up and down. You may have to use a little pry bar or something on it, but other than that, not too bad of a job. Car looks way better. Hope it handles way better. Hope y'all enjoyed this. We'll catch y'all next time.